All right. Let me share this really quick, guys. Just waiting a couple minutes. Johnny on the ones and twos there. All right, it's hot. It's like cold and it's hot. All right.
The hat's too hot.
What? No. It's not the hat. All right, guys. Let me get started. It's been a crazy last couple of days. We experienced so many crazy events that it's hard to really know what you experienced until after the fact, until like you really start putting pieces together. We obviously were there live on Capitol Hill on January 6th when all these events went down, when there was the takeover by a lot of protesters. Now I want to break that down because Pasta and I are going to do a show tomorrow, but I wanted to really come here and talk because there's a lot of craziness going on. I'm watching the left / liberals who think they're left really start sounding a lot like fascists that they were supposed to be fighting. And it's been like this for the last 24 to 48 hours since the events took place, right? So you guys know that there was really bad signal, right? We went live and we were trying to cover the beginning part, which was at the ellipse. It was Trump's speech where he was talking and he was telling people, oh, like the election was rigged, we're not going to give up, we're going to continue fighting this, blah blah blah. There was a lot of different kinds of people. There were families, there were old people, there were young people, people of color. There were all kinds of people at this rally. It was really peaceful in the beginning, and then he said at the end, we are going to go marching, and we're going to march down Pennsylvania Avenue towards the Capitol. People are using this to mean that he was advocating inciting violence, and that's not what happened. That's not what we show in the video. That's not what, like, that's impossible because it was 4 miles away, and we're going to talk more about this with Pasta tomorrow. It's 4 miles away, and the people that were marching with him didn't even make it to the Capitol, where some other people were already there. That was the Force the Vote rally, the very beginning, where he was like talking about that. They had an event page that said, "Ooh, this is what we're going to be doing." We know because we were going to cover it, so we knew the different timestamps for every single event. And then when we got there, people were already climbing the scaffolds. People were already pushing against the barrier to go inside the Capitol. There were also other people surrounding the pond area. There were also other people just amassed everywhere. There were at least 100,000 people as advertised. And the reason I'm going through this is because what I saw online, that literally right after, a lot of the things the media was saying, a lot of the things people were saying was completely inaccurate. Like I said, the people that Trump told, hey, we're going to march to Pennsylvania Avenue, didn't even make it there because of everything that happened. And we made it because we drove, and we stopped to get a drink, and then we drove, and we needed to go live, and we needed to start finding signal because it was very hard to find signal. I was even saying things like, I hope these people realize the cops aren't their friends, because they're messing up the signal for everybody, just like they do to BLM and just like they do to all these other protesters that have been protesting since the aftermath of the George Floyd protest. And like, I was saying things like, yeah, the police aren't really anybody's friend, blah blah blah. So we get there, and then we start seeing whiffs and smelling whiffs and getting whiffs of tear gas, and we get closer and closer. And then I tell Johnny, like, I didn't want him to go any closer because we didn't have the gear that we normally have, which is like the mask, any sort of protection for rubber bullets, a helmet. We didn't have any of that stuff that we normally have to go use when we cover the LAPD, because the LAPD, specifically the sheriff's department, has zero qualms about shooting journalists, and we've seen that and we've covered that. So I didn't really want him to go too far up, and we got a really giant whiff of the tear gas. We were tear gassed. A lot of people were tear gassed, and there's a video I still have yet to release of us experiencing the tear gas. It's not fun. It definitely wasn't at the level of Portland where we were, because we were far down, but we did manage to get a lot of footage of people climbing, of people going towards and pushing the line. Now this is all what actually physically happened, right? What I'm trying to get to is the aftermath, because there is a lot being said that this is a coup, this was a coup, that this was a terrorist attack. And it's coming from a lot of the supposed progressive contingent of the left that 4 years ago, 5 years ago even, let's say 4, when Bernie Sanders was cheated in 2016 by Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. We have WikiLeaks to say that 100%. You cannot deny that anymore. They were all about like revolution. Let's take it over. Let's push the barriers of when they went to Philly. Like, it was like, people were really for it, right? They were on it. They were all about it. Fast forward to now, it feels like the Trump supporters are where we were 4 years ago. And I say we because I was a Bernie supporter in 2016 and in 2020, and I considered myself a part of the progressive movement. And what has been happening since has been that these people who were supposed progressives have embraced the Democratic establishment in their ideology now full on. And there's like a great unmasking of people who are really here to fight the status quo versus people who really just want to be gatekeepers of a new brand of status quo. And a lot of us who are speaking the truth are getting smeared as partial to the right, or as white supremacists, or as Nazis. It's this very authoritarian behavior that is coming in on the supposed left. And it started to, well, it didn't start, but there was a lot of revelations with Jimmy Dore and Force the Vote, with people like shitting on him and shitting on anybody that dared to criticize the squad, and talking about, you know, these issues and wanting to actually have direct actions. It started with that, right? And you guys know we were there for that. We were just there talking about Force the Vote, talking about Julian Assange, with several other journalists on the ground pushing those issues, but also covering them because the media wouldn't cover it, and like bigger channels weren't really covering it besides Jimmy Dore and some of the independent media that was there. And so that great unmasking began with where people were trying to defend the establishment politicians who have been lying to them, who haven't done shit for them, who literally just voted in Nancy Pelosi again, right? And now what we're seeing is these same politicians, the new squad that people were yelling at Dore and others like us for going after them, for saying, hey, they're going to be the same exact thing as the previous squad. They're not going to do anything. They're going to fold. Guess what? They folded. They voted for Pelosi. They didn't get anything in return. The pay-go exemption doesn't count because you still have to bring it to a floor vote. They got a higher position in committees they already had, which again, that good for them, but what does that do for Medicare for All? They voted on the shit, like before that we had the $600. Democrats joined Republicans against overriding, to override Trump's veto. You're right, because Trump wanted to give people $2,000 and he wanted to get rid of some of the money that was going to the military, the military industrial complex. And all of this happened, right? And people are upset, and people have no trust in their government. There's massive desire for civil unrest. There's massive distrust. All of these things have been leading up to this moment. And then instead of the left supporting movements like direct action type of movements, organizing for Medicare for all in the way that they should on a mass scale, organizing for better stimulus, talking about a general strike on Twitter and doing all these things. Instead of the left doing that, the right came in and was just angry about the vote, about the election, and about the fact that they felt that they were cheated. Now, you know, if you watch us, that I disagree with the right on pretty much everything, except that I do genuinely believe that there were, at the very least, lack of transparency in these elections, that these elections were manipulated, that these elections were completely fraudulent. Any way you look at it, whether you start looking at the tech and how they took down the channels and the voices that were talking about it, how you start talking about how the media was completely unable to talk about anything Joe Biden did wrong. We can talk about all these things. And all of that is extremely true and extremely accurate. All of that happened. Whether or not there's enough evidence to say that the elections were rigged, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to argue with people about it anymore. But what I will say is that we've seen the Democratic Party rig elections. We've seen the Republican Party rig elections. We have zero trust in our election system. We can't look into our machines. It's proprietary software. We don't have open source. There are USB ports. There are SD cards that can connect to these machines. The right chose to focus on Dominion. We have Smartmatics, ESNS. All of these machines, that we can't look into them. So I can't prove that 100% look into these machines and say that they weren't, but you can't prove 100% that they were or they weren't. Either way, right? And so the reality is now that idea of merely discussing that gets thrown into a conspiracy section where you can't even talk about it anymore, or you're a conspiracy theorist, or you're a Trump supporter, or you're a Nazi, or you're a Nazi sympathizer, and that's very dangerous. And of course, right after the whole thing happened in the Capitol, where somehow these people were let in by supposed DC Capitol security. They were let in, even though other people got pepper sprayed and tear gassed and all these things. Some of these people were let in somehow, and supposedly some of these people had guns, and supposedly they were aggressive and violent, which is none of what I saw on the ground. I saw a lot of people agitated, climbing, doing stupid shit like yelling and screaming, but I didn't see any weapons, and I didn't see anything remotely like that. The pictures of people with weapons, how they got up there, the police let them in, right? So why would the police let people in? I have a theory about that, but before I get to that theory, I do want to say that we have seen many times our government lie to us. This is why people don't trust the government. We have seen many times that the system has been continuously using disruptions like this, like George Floyd, to really crack down on the public through mass surveillance and censorship, right? And right after all of this happened, the first thing that people were doing, people in power, Congress people, was calling for any Republican congressperson that said that there was fraud in the election to resign, to be pushed out. Cori Bush, one of our first pieces of legislation, is pushing that. What does that do? That makes a mockery out of questioning our election system that we should be questioning, because we don't have democracy in this country. Then they start talking about how impeachment must happen, even though Trump has 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now, before he departs. And we start talking about crackdowns via censorship. The New York Times issued an article how all of this began over social media, so now we need a social media crackdown. Then we have Trump being kicked off of Facebook. Then we have Trump being completely just like he has been in this last election cycle, right? censored, etc. I don't like Trump, and I hate that I have to say this constantly. I don't like Trump, but anybody being censored is a problem, right? Like censored for free speech, it's a no-no. The president of the United States being censored by these big tech companies and these social media giants is going to have a precedent on the rest of us. And who is it going to hurt the most? It's going to hurt the leftist organizations. It's going to hurt activists. It's going to hurt journalists. It's going to hurt specifically independent media. I can't sit there and talk about Julian Assange and how I'm happy that he wasn't extradited, but I'm extremely upset that he is still in jail and that they didn't give him a bail, and then by the same token turn around and say, good, Trump should be kicked off because he was inciting violence. Because I know he was not inciting violence, and I don't have to like him to say that. And I don't have to like the right or their ideology to tell the truth that no, not every single person in that area, whether it was the first portion of the rally or the second portion by Capitol, was a fascist. I'm sorry. You can't make blanket statements like that and say that all of these people are fascists. You can't, because it's not true. There were people there who were not even political. There were people there who were simply there for the vote, who felt like they were cheated and they wanted to protest that. That's their American right. They have the right to actually go and protest. Now, people are mad because when BLM goes to protest and blah, 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 there are all these people that come in and they're angry about it. And that's true. Would protesters have been treated differently if they had been BLM protesters and leftists? I think so. I don't think you can deny that. But here's the kicker. There is an attempt to use this, obviously, to further put people against each other and further sanction more state violence. We saw a woman who was a veteran and obviously a supporter of Stop the Steal, and she was murdered by police, point blank. There's a video. You can watch it. I think Dan Cohen retweeted a video about it, and you can watch it, and you can't say that that's okay. But what I have been seeing is people with rose emojis on their profile, people that say they're anti-fascist, people that say they're against police brutality, all cops are bastards, all of these things. Yeah, kill that Nazi. Yeah, fuck that Nazi. They're saying these things like as if that's okay, and it's not. And then if I say it's not, I am partial or sympathetic to white supremacy, and that's ridiculous. And like, we have come to a turning point, I think, in this country where we're either going to come together or we're going to fall apart. And it looks to me that we're going down the hole of falling apart, because I can't even have a conversation with somebody and say what I'm saying right now, if I go on Facebook or Twitter, without them saying that I'm partial to white supremacy. As somebody that's an immigrant, as somebody that's a person of color, as somebody that has knows very well what U.S. imperialism does to countries, I can't even have this conversation because people automatically say that I'm supporting right-wingers. And it's sad, but it's really more dangerous that people have fallen right into this whole manipulation, because that's what it is. They're manipulating people's emotions, whether it's on the side of, I was cheated and the government isn't doing anything about it. They're mocking me and I have to go and protest, and I'm angry, and I'm going to bring, my people, and I'm going to prep like I'm going to a civil war, and I'm going to say stop the steal, and I'm going to do all these, whether it's that or whether it's the other side where it's like, well, screw these people, they're all Nazis, and they shouldn't, who cares about Nazis dying and all these things. It is absolutely gone hysterical. It is crazy what I'm seeing, and it's coming a lot of the criticism that Pasta, myself, some of the members of the Gray Zone, some of the members of the Julian Assange advocacy groups, Action for Assange, all these people who really are truth tellers, who really do the work, who really are on the ground, and who really cover this, and who don't spin it, right? Who don't spin it, who really just say, look, this is what it is, and this is what this is what's happening. We can see the multiple angles. We're getting attacked like crazy, like crazy. And we're not getting attacked. I'm not even getting attacked by Republicans. I'm getting attacked by progressives who are siding with the Democratic establishment's narrative. Cori Bush's resolution that she pushed right after, that she put out right after what happened in in the Capitol, literally had the date of January 5th before. Like, so why is she pushing for removing people and drafting all of these things about impeachment? Because that's what it comes down to, right? These Democrats have been wanting to draft impeachment for weeks against Trump. I mean, they didn't get to impeach him on the Russiagate collusion crap because it was all crap. It was all false. They could have impeached him on emoluments, and they failed to do that because they were too busy trying to construct the Trump-Russia boogeyman. And now they want to impeach him again when he's about to leave office. And their excuse is, well, he can't run again. Well, that's not a good enough excuse, because if people want to elect somebody, they should have the right to elect somebody. But I digress, because we don't have a democratic election system. Our election system is completely broken. There's no trust in it, and there shouldn't be trust in it because it's entirely corrupt. Whether it's voter suppression, which exists, to the machines, to the ballots and ballot harvesting, all of that. And that is very suspect that they already had this plan. Also, the mayor of DC received a memo that there were going to be at least 100,000 people, and should they get backup? And he said, no, I don't want backup. And that's it. Whitney Webb has been talking about the DHS memos. She's been talking about how this was going to happen. She has been really pointing out a lot of this, that this is all just a psyop for the censorship and the basically a technocratic takeover of Americans. And hold on. And she's right, because what I'm seeing is that all of these people, right? All of these people that are being duped into saying, oh, this was a coup, we need to impeach him, we need to imprison him, all of that, they're falling right in line with what they want you to do. They want you to cheer for censorship. They want you to say it's okay to take my rights because of I don't agree with someone's ideology. They want you to say it's okay to get rid of any sort of idea that we have free speech or democracy in this country because you hate Trump. And Trump is about to leave office, and they're still relying on the boogeyman of Trump. They're still going to rely on the ghost of Trump as soon as he leaves too. They're relying on a lot of these things, and it's really strange and really sad to watch, but it's extremely dangerous more than anything. If we let this go unsaid, if we let people get away with painting others as being the problem for wanting a sort of nuanced, like, logical reaction to this, we're the ones that are going to be screwed. Because I'm telling you, this is just a beginning. And what I mean by that is a lot of people thought that getting rid of Trump was going to solve their problems. We just saw Joe Manchin say that he's going to deny people $2,000. Absolutely not. Those are your Democrats. Oh, okay, senators, Democrats, they won in Georgia. So now Mitch McConnell is going to be minority leader, and people are putting all their hopes and dreams onto the fact that maybe something will be different now. And I think still believing that is very naive, because there's nothing to show that Democrats have ever done anything for people in the last few years except pretty much push the entire spectrum of the country and pretty much hit people against each other, psyop everything, and basically they have become what keeps us from being able to fight the system, because they keep sheep herding people back into a party that isn't going to do anything for them. And people like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Jamal Bowman now, Cori Bush, they're all instrumental in maintaining this trickery because we can't even fight actual fascism, because they're going to keep putting you in there, and they're going to keep telling you that you have to believe in what they're saying. They are a rebranded part of progressivism. Are we switching mics? Okay.
Okay.
All right. So they're a rebranded form of their progressive brand of reform is liberalism. Like, it's a new form of liberalism, and they're herding people back into the Democratic Party. They're literally making everybody else who disagrees with them look like you don't know what you're talking about, like you're a conspiracy theorist, like you're crazy, and they're instrumental in that. That's all they're being used for. Are they actually opposing Nancy Pelosi? No. Are they actually opposing the status quo? No. Are they doing anything to actually get healthcare right now? No. They're too busy fucking drafting articles to impeach Donald Trump. The guy that's leaving, right? He lost. Okay. He's leaving office in less than 2 weeks. And somehow we're obsessed with focusing on that, and still people don't have health care, and still people don't have a stimulus, and still people are getting a basic tax break. How do you not see that you are being duped, right? You're being entirely duped. And a lot of these Trump supporters were duped, because let's talk about that for a second. When we were there, people were not, like I said, the majority of them were not doing anything wrong. They were just cheering, shouting. It is whatever they're shouting. I was there with Jonny. If I felt uncomfortable, I would have said so. And I didn't feel uncomfortable. I did it. I was just reporting. We were just getting video, getting footage, reporting, and wanting to talk to people about why they thought the election was stolen, why they thought it was rigged. A couple of our friends were there advocating for Julian Assange, and we're going to be talking to them later tonight. I'm going to go on Slow News Day with Steve Poikonen, because we were there and we want to kind of unpack everything. And it was like so many different people. I mean, Jason Burmas was there, and those people, they're not Nazis, so you can't make blanket statements like that all these people that were there are Nazis, because I know it's not true, because I was there. And so what the media did was grab little snippets of the most, like, meme-worthy, retweet-worthy altercations between the furry wearing Duck Dynasty looking people that went in there, and then the police. And then they put that on Twitter, and they put it everywhere. And the guy sitting on the chair, and Nancy Pelosi, and all these people like just mocking Pelosi, and they put that on Twitter, and they made it into this fear mongering campaign. Oh my God, these terrorists, these radical, blah, 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 like, and I'm over here watching this, and I'm like, that is not what happened. Like, none of this is the way it's being spun. Is what happened. And you can trust the mainstream media and their little cohorts with blue checks who have been lying to the American people for decades about the war on terrorism or the war on drugs. You can trust those people again. You can continue trusting those people, or you can trust independent media that was on the ground, that was there, and that had a completely different perspective and a completely different experience on this whole thing. Because that's where we're at. All the talking points that I'm getting, oh, he was inciting violence. No, impossible. Trump was not inciting violence. Number one, he, like I said before, he literally wasn't even, those people weren't even there. They didn't even make it to the Capitol. To terrorists, I saw no type of desire to do that. Were there white supremacists there? Likely, yeah. Or did I see them? No. Were there people who were hateful? Probably, yeah. I mean, I saw a guy that said women should go home and back into the kitchen, and I was like, I rolled my eyes. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere, like. But did I see the mass, like everybody be like a white supremacist Nazi? No. Am I questioning why the hell the police allowed these people in? Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with the folks who say, well, if it was me, or you or any leftists who gone in there, we would have been shot and blah, blah, blah. I think the police wouldn't allow a real insurgency to go in there and actually take over the government. Like, I don't think that that would happen. Precisely because I don't think that would happen is why I think this was a giant psyop. There's a reason why they're going to let in all these people to cause chaos, spin this all around fear, and create this narrative where these people are radicals, and now any sort of dissent regarding elections, any sort of dissent regarding any protest against the government, any sort of dissent like that, boom, you're not going to be able to do it next time. They're going to completely try to squash and quell these movements. Why? Well, because you just gave them the apparatus too. This is why several Trump supporters feel used. When we were coming back from DC, the vast majority of the people on the planes, all of them were Trump supporters. And we were hearing what they were saying, like, and at the airport, and they were like, they felt used. They felt like there's something that they're not being told, that this isn't the whole story. And, some of them were blaming Antifa, and, I don't think it's Antifa. I do find it, the reason they were saying that was because normally, in my experience as well, when there is like a sort of Trump rally or any sort of thing supportive of Donald Trump or supportive of anything regarding him, there is usually a counter protest to it. There's usually, if it's, quote unquote Antifa or people who are anti-fascist who support BLM or a plethora of whatever leftist groups there are, there's usually a counter protest. I didn't see any counter protesters there, which I thought was odd considering that this was going to be one of the largest massive groups of pro-Trump / Stop the Steal supporters. So I was kind of flabbergasted that there weren't any BLM people. I was actually looking for them so we could talk to them, and I didn't see any of them. So that's really weird. So they are saying that that means that Antifa was likely a culprit, that, there's agitators. And there are, like, when I cover the BLM protesters, there's always like undercover, anti-BLM protesters who agitate the police. That does happen. I've seen it happen. We've witnessed it. It does happen. So I don't blame them for questioning that, but I do think that this is much bigger. And some people were saying they felt used, like this does not make any sense. And now, they're cracking down on anybody that has a dissenting opinion on the government. And that's something scary, because at the end of the day, we should question our government, especially a government that's literally prosecuting and trying to extradite Julian Assange for telling us not just about war crimes all over the world, but specifically U.S. war crimes, specifically exposing the corruption in our system. And they're trying to make an example out of him and trying to shut his voice off, because if they do that, then they can do whatever they want to all of us. This is exactly why I'm against the censorship on Twitter, because as much as I don't like Donald Trump, that's irrelevant to the fact that he has the right to say, to speak his mind, and so do you, and so does everybody else. So when I see lefty independent media advocating to deplatform people who are talking about election fraud, like Status Quo, it's very status quo of them to advocate for something like that, to advocate for the security state, because that's exactly who you're advocating for here when you want people to lose their platform because you don't agree with them on an issue. You don't have to agree with them. And, the accusations we got about being so powerful that we incited these people, that word is being used so loosely, that we incited people to go to the Capitol and fight for election justice. I wish I was that powerful. So we'd already have healthcare. We'd already have election integrity. We already have monthly stimulus. We wouldn't be shutting down restaurants. Well, I would do things so much differently if I had that much control over people. And it's insane to be accused of all these things that we're being accused of when we're simply having logical conversations and when we're simply on the ground. And these accusations are coming from people who weren't there. And these accusations are all saying the same thing. And I think that there's a push, whether or not it is from the, deep state or whatever you want to call it, to really discredit and delegitimize voices of dissent, people who tell the truth. And you can't say that that's not true, because look at what's happening with Julian Assange. Look at what's happened to a lot of whistleblowers like Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden. And so we're under attack. And so people want to talk about a coup. And I'll tell you that the real coup is a massive, massive takeover of big tech and corporations into our government. They're taking everything over as people are losing their homes. They're losing everything they have, their jobs, their healthcare, their dignity. They're losing everything. And you wonder why people are so angry and cursing on TV and talking about like the fraud squad and all of these things. Because the moment I had my, I was speaking on Force a Vote, talking about healthcare and talking about those politicians, how horrible they are and how they're not doing shit. We were surrounded by police on all sides. But somehow these police that were ready to arrest 30 people who were there advocating for healthcare were completely missing when it came down to a massive group of 100,000 plus people. And somehow these people managed to get in, right? Like, you're not going to have more security. You're not going to have a way to stop them. I'm sorry. I'm not buying that. And there are more and more questions arising in the aftermath of this. And I'm saying that because they don't want people to unite. Because after we released one of our videos yesterday, a lot of people were saying, look, we need to unite a lot of the working class. And like, some of the working class is going to have different ideologies, right? And that's true. The vast majority of those people at those rallies for Trump were working class people. They weren't wealthy. They weren't people that were just looking to like agitate. There were a group of people that were doing exactly that were very militarily dressed and were ready to really like, burn shit down. But I pose it like this. If the left did that, you'd have the left cheering. Oh, yay, we finally took over. Guillotine this, guillotine that. But because they didn't do it, and these right-wingers made the left look like a bunch of like wusses who can't even support each other, we can't even get 100 people to the Force of a rally because they were too busy denouncing it. We can't even get 100 people to the Julian Assange rally. We got several dozens of people in every state. Thank you to the organizers of Action for Assange and other organizers worldwide who did the work to make that happen. And they were really successful. When it comes in terms of press freedoms, it's not the most attractive topic to a lot of people, or the most pressing, because it's not rent or healthcare or anything like that. But it is actually the if not the like one of the most pressing issues of our time. And so that just goes to show you, though, that they don't care about letting people look like fools and about letting all of this supposed violence happen if they can get an agenda out of it. They knew this was going to happen. A lot of people were predicting it, specifically Whitney Webb. And they chose not to do anything about it because they were going to use this to push their fucking agenda. And that's exactly what's happening. The crackdown of censorship. You're going to feel it and see it tenfold with the Biden administration. You're going to feel it and see it so much more in the next few months. And any sort of opposition or dissent is going to be looked down on. It's going to be completely not just vilified, but they're going to unleash everything against you. And that's the whole point of this. Why now? Well, look where we are. We're in a pandemic. California is number 1. Florida's number 2 or number 3. People are still suffering from COVID. Businesses, the economy is still suffering from COVID. People are losing everything because of COVID, because it's not even COVID, obviously, but the government reaction, the political manipulation due to COVID, the fact that our country mishandled the whole thing the entire time. And that doesn't fall on one party. That falls on the whole system. The whole system isn't prepped for that. And people are suffering. Then you have civil unrest with police brutality. You have distrust in the government. You have the national security state doing whatever they want. The day that all of this went down, Syria was bombed by our ally Israel. Nobody cares because it's Syria, and we do that to them all the time. And if we don't do it, our allies do. And I worry that the little bit of progressivism that came out after Sanders ran for president the first time is completely gone. They have managed to turn, the Democrats, the establishment, managed to turn these people into straight up liberals advocating for more censorship, cheering for more surveillance, cheering for state-sanctioned violence by the police. It's a fucking upside down world. It's a fucking cartoon. And we're living in it. And I honestly don't know exactly where we go, but I know the only way forward is to stop the fucking biased, hyper-partisan bullshit. Because at the end of the day, the working class is getting fucked. We're getting fucked by the same people. And I think in my conversations and in my listening to a lot of people on the right, they feel the same way. And you can call me a Nazi or a sympathizer and whatever you want, which is laughable. When people know my politics, that's laughable. But I'm telling the truth. Because what we have to do is talk to each other and understand that we have to fight the oligarchs. We can't do shit like this the way it was done. They did this on purpose to discredit any sort of movement for elections. They did this on purpose to discredit any opposition to the government. It wasn't a well-organized event. It was people there who were agitating, people who wanted this to look bad. And of course, the upper security state, in my opinion, was involved in this to make it look like a violent coup of sorts. But the real coup is happening right now. And people asking for censorship and asking for Trump to be in prison and asking all these things are completely fucking being tools manipulated by the system. And I can bring up at least 5 people who should be in prison right now before Trump. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, George Bush. I mean, if you want to imprison him, fine, you can find a way to do it, but then do it for everybody else. Otherwise, you're a fucking hypocrite. If you want to fucking talk about all cops are bastards, it's got to be all cops are bastards, not just the cops that disagree with my ideology. Not just when they kill people you don't like. If you want to talk about freedom of speech and how you care about Julian Assange and press freedoms, you also can't be for the takedown of the people you don't agree with just because you don't agree with them. I'm so sorry. That is hypocritical as fuck. You can say anything you want about me, but I'm fucking consistent when it comes to that shit. I got into fights with people when we were covering the George Floyd protest and police brutality because I'm against the police state across the board. I'm against the police state when it comes to Julian Assange and the prosecution and persecution of journalism. I'm against the police state when it comes to the overbearing and exploitation of their powers on the people when it comes to shooting unarmed people and people of color. And when it comes to the racism in our system, I'm against that. And I'm also against them shooting unarmed people at a protest, even if these people are not my ideology. And those who cannot separate their emotions and who cannot understand that you cannot pick and choose when your morality fucking kicks in can smear me all they fucking want. But I know where I stand, and I know where my team stands, and I know where my friends who are here on the ground doing the work stand. We want the truth. That's why it's easy, because we simply want the truth. I'm not going to spin a narrative, and I had to argue with Jordan Cheriton yesterday because he's over there suggesting that I'm a fucking partial to white supremacy because he's over there trying to convince me that every single person there is a Nazi, and they're not. Every single person that was in DC was not a Nazi. I don't know what happened in LA. I saw some very awful things happen to a black woman, and I know how LA works, and I know how the police are. So I do believe that there were bad actors there, there were white supremacists there, and that there was abuse there. But I wasn't here in LA, so I'm going to take the word of the journalists who were there in LA. But when it comes to fucking DC, you're not going to fucking tell me that I need to lie and put out blanket statements, and I'm not going to do that. And because I'm not doing that now, oh, you're a white supremacist and this and that. And if that gets you more clicks and more likes and more shares to be a partial partisan hack, then you might as well apply to MSNBC. I'm sure the pay is better, and I'm sure you'll get health care, and I'm sure it'll be great. But if that's the kind of journalism you're going to do, then by all means, do it. But don't smear people who actually want the truth. And that's where I'm at, you guys. That's where I'm at. We're going to discuss more of this tomorrow, Pasta and myself. I'm going to be on Slow News Day with Steve Poikonen at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 Pacific. And I know there's so much going on right now, and we have to muddy through the waters. It's really or navigate through the waters, and these are muddy waters. It's tough to navigate through this whole system right now because people just want black and white. Oh, if you believe this, then you're that. Or if you believe that, then you're this. That's not how it works. We have to look into things, and we have to actually dissect everything. And that's what we do here. And that's what people don't understand. Like, there are people who want partisanship. They just want a progressive branding of partisanship. That's not what we do here. We tell the truth. And if the truth is that there is more to this story than what the media says, we're going to cover it because we were there and we saw what happened versus how it was spun. And if there are inconsistencies with the way our electeds have been acting by pushing impeachment and pushing the removal of people from offices because they had a different ideology or because they questioned our elections, that's a fucking problem. And if they're going to crack down on me and you and any other person telling the truth, that's a problem. That is fascism. And if you're going to promote fascism to try to get rid of other type of fascism, you're a fucking fascist. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You by saying that you want Nazis dead, people who aren't Nazis dead, right? You're sanctioning state violence. You're advocating for that. It's you're not the good person here. You're not on the right side of justice. As much as you want to white savior your way into this, that's not what's happening. And it's just hilarious to me. A lot of these people who claim that they're for racial justice, they all happen to be white, but they claim that they're for social racial justice, and they're calling me a Nazi. It's just it's hilarious and sad that we've come to this point, and it's going to get worse. And the divide is going to get bigger. And we're going to have to really, really uphold and really, really uplift those voices that are telling the truth, because our voices are in danger. Nobody likes people who tell them the truth. They'd rather smear them. They'd rather vilify them. Because you know why? We're a fucking danger. We're a fucking danger to the system. Me telling you this right now, as a woman of color, as a Latina, as an immigrant, and being really logical about what happened, that destroys her narrative. This is why I get so much vitriol towards me, because I'm not the little AOC that does whatever they say and uses all these identity politics with a vapid agenda that only attacks Republicans. I'm not that. So they don't know how to control me and where to put me, and so I must be a fucking racist then. Like that's what it is. Or I must be, a conspiracy theorist, or I must be looking for clicks and likes, even though this doesn't get you clicks and likes. We know what gets you popularity. What gets you popularity is doing a little bit of the progressive jargon with the entire establishment agenda. That's what gets you popularity. I wish it wasn't, but that's because that's how the media works, how the algorithm works, how YouTube works, how all of these dumbasses work. Their brain just can't handle the reality, and it's because they've been so brainwashed by mainstream media. Mainstream media is literally like the culprit. Like, it's awful. And I just want to mention, as I'm wrapping up, the thing that I was hearing the most too over there was people complaining about Kamala Harris, complaining about Joe Biden, and complaining about the media. Those things are true. Kamala Harris is dangerous. Joe Biden's a dumbass, and mainstream media is fake news. And Trump may be saying it, but it's true. We've said it before. Bernie used to say it, but the moment they started vilifying him and saying he was a Trumper for saying that, he stopped. That's not what you do. You don't stop. You say, I may oppose Trump on this, on everything, but he is right about this. It's as simple as that. It's called having the fucking balls and the fucking spine to actually stay true to your message. Because now we're at a point where Trump failed a lot of people. People are angry at him, justifiably so. They're angry at him. He failed a lot of people. He gave them a hope, and then he didn't deliver. He didn't drain the swamp. He completely still was a warmonger. He completely surrounded himself with people like Pompeo. He trusted the wrong people, like Barr. They all betrayed him because they're all part of the system, and they're not going to stick their neck out for him. He let his supporters down. Bernie Sanders didn't really fight the DNC this time around, didn't oppose the election rigging that happened in 2016, and he sure as hell didn't even touch it in 2020, even though there was ample evidence in 2016. And in 2020, even though we didn't have WikiLeaks, we had a bunch of election integrity activists that we interviewed, and we did a bunch of work on the primary, and there was ample evidence that he was cheated. Oh, I don't want to be looked like as a cheater or as a sore loser and blah, blah, blah. Well, then who took the mantle? Trump did. He took it and said, I'm going to fight for election, whatever, and I'm going to say this. That should have been Bernie. All the people on front of the Capitol, that should have been the anti-imperialist, anti-interventionist, left, independent, whatever you want to call yourself. That should have been all of us in an organized way, demanding what we deserve, not in a fucking chaotic, disorganized, crazy way that they took advantage of. So now your leaders have failed you. What do? AOC is a fraud. Bernie and Trump didn't do what they were supposed to do. What do? Right. Well, they know that dissension and anger is at an all-time high. So the only thing left for you to do is to protest and to occupy and to demand. And that's what we have to do in spite of what's coming. Because in spite of all the shit that's going to be unleashed on truth tellers, on activists, on people who want to change things, that's what's coming. But guess what? One of the reasons that they can frame this whole thing as dangerous, right? They're trying so hard to frame the right-wing populism as a bunch of terrorists only and a bunch of white supremacists only. It's because within that right-wing populism, with people that I will never agree with on issues, some of them, right, are people who are poor, people who are hurting, and people who are looking for somebody to lead them, and people who are looking to come together and fight the system. There are people that it doesn't matter what ideology you are. They'll listen to you and say, I don't agree with your ideology, but you are at least honest about what you're saying. And that's why this show, me, and others who are telling the truth are dangerous, because you don't have to agree with our ideology. We will still tell you the truth. That's real media. That's real journalism. That's real truth telling. Not what you've been fed to believe. Not this whole partisan hackism that people call progressive journalism. That is completely gone. In order to fight this coup of the security state that's coming in, we're going to have to make alliances with people we don't 100% agree with on some things. But the things we have to agree on are free speech, dismantling the national security state, basic human rights, and anti-interventionism, as well as the obvious election reform. Because whether or not you believe Biden won fair and square, we should have the ability to talk about it. We should have the ability to question it. And we should have the fucking ability to look into our machines and to have control over our elections. They're public. They should be public ownership of our elections, not corporations that exist in different countries, or you don't even know who owns the machine or who doesn't. Not big monopolies, not big tech those people shouldn't control our elections. You should control your fucking elections. And saying that shouldn't be controversial. And saying that shouldn't make you some sort of crazy Nazi sympathizer. Because that's what's going on here. And I'm going to fucking dismantle that shit. One fucking giant fact at a time. And people are going to do that with me because people are waking the fuck up. People who don't pay attention to politics get this shit more than the people who pay attention to it but only listen to their echo chamber. And I realized that how vast that is last night, listening to people talk about it at the airport, people who were Democrats, Republicans, people of different ideologies saying, yeah, something's not right with this. And if they are able to see it, people who aren't even in this, that means more people are seeing it, but they want you divided. They want you against each other. They want you to demand authoritarianism through censorship and through state-sanctioned police killings of people you don't like. And that's dangerous. That's fascism. We are at the prequel of V for Vendetta right now. And if we don't stop it, and if we don't come together and find a way to listen to people uniting, not giving in your ideology or your morality to unite with some fascistic way, no, but simply saying, let's have a fucking conversation and save this fucking country. Let's have a conversation and figure out that we're both getting fucked by this system and by these elite oligarchs who are getting richer and richer and richer. Not only is Jeff Bezos becoming a trillionaire, but Mr. Tesla is now the richest man in the world. And people are losing everything they have simultaneously. So instead of being distracted by psyops, like what just happened, being distracted by politicians, being distracted by the games these people play of hating one another, putting Antifa versus the white supremacists, of putting all these groups against each other, instead of being distracted by these things, we should look at things in a way where we understand that a civil war right now would screw us completely. It would screw the people. That would instill martial law. That would completely have a massive crackdown. People would have to be in their homes. They're going to use the pandemic further to their agenda. And we're not going to be able to talk to each other. So, bottom line, we have to understand that we cannot let this narrative spinning happen anymore. Did you forget about the war on terror? Did you forget about the war on drugs? Did we forget that we were lied to about 9/11 for years? And thanks to Julian Assange and other journalists exposing the cables, exposing what actually happened, exposing our war crimes. We know the truth now, but it took decades of people being smeared. It took decades of people being told that they were conspiracy theorists. It's happening again. And the next row of Obamas are already in line to completely continue lying to you. And in those people are AOC. And she's getting exposed off the wazoo right now. So it's hilarious that this happened perfectly fine, perfectly right now to really get people to be like, oh, well, maybe she was right. Oh, maybe these people, blah, blah, blah. I'm not minimizing that there's a danger in domestic terrorism, that there are people who really hate people for their skin color. That is a thing. I'm not minimizing that. So don't fucking say I'm minimizing that. But what I am saying is that is a result of our system too. It's a result of our system that was built on racism, on classism. And the Democratic Party has managed to make elitism and classism used against the people. And people who support the Democratic Party are a bunch of fucking elitist pricks. Because what Trump did, as dangerous as it was, is he got the working class on his side. And we need to get the working class on the side of the people as a whole. We need to get the working class together against the oligarchy, beyond ideology. Because we can fight about ideology in a fair democratic system. Don't fucking tell me that what happened on Wednesday lost us the democratic process, that it screwed the integrity of our democracy, that we lost our democracy and the integrity of our elections. We don't have no democracy, and we have no fucking integrity in our elections. We have been talking about the lack of integrity in our elections for fucking years now. So don't give me that bullshit jargon that CNN and MSNBC and all these neo-progressives were spewing, this boutique left, and tell me about the integrity of our democracy that Trump ruined. It was ruined long before that. He's fucking exposed it, and that's why you guys can't stand it, because he exposed it. And you don't want that ugly boogeyman to keep exposing shit inadvertently, right? It's not like he's necessarily doing it on purpose. But he exposed distrust in the elections. They're never going to forgive him for that. He exposed the ugliness in America and what people believe in. They're not, that's there. He's ruining the system, even the foreign policy. Oh yeah, let's bomb this guy. Let's kill him. We want their oil. Even in the way he talks, he's honest about his brutality. Neoliberals are not. They're brutal equally, but they're dishonest about it. They paint it like flowers and rainbows when it's shit. And that's why you see so many people who believe in Donald Trump, because of that. And until we fix that, until we lead with the truth, you're going to lose people to the right. And you're going to see Tom Cotton win the presidency someday. And I don't want that. I don't want that, because I don't want any fascists on either end of the spectrum, is why I am saying this right now. So if you guys want to smear people for telling the truth, go right ahead. But we're going to keep telling the fucking truth. So thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate you. I don't know if there were any super chats. Let me see if I can find them real quick. I don't know how to. Okay, wait, let me go back. All right. Steph. Thanks for your courage, Convo crew. Thank you, Steph, for that. Francis Martz, thanks for the sticker and the. Is that a euro? Thanks for the euros. Our dollars aren't doing so great here. Invest in Bitcoin. Ray, join the Rokfin. Rokfin. I'm doing a pasta. Much love, Fiorina. It's Fiorella, but thank you, Larry. You tell the truth. Thank you, Larry. Let's see. Anthony Allen, thank you for the super chat contribution. Mohammed Afzal, thank you for the super chat contribution. It's always appreciated on this chair. I think that is all I have seen. Let me see. And thank you to anybody who donated via other means and who donated on Rokfin. I can't really see it right now, but you guys are awesome. Emmett Campbell, thank you. Yeah. Jackie McCraffy, thank you. Patrick S, thank you. France R, thank you. Bob Browning, thank you. All right. Yeah, Michael David. I don't think we said that. Okay. So yeah, we'll be back, guys. We're going to put some graphics up tomorrow so you guys can see what I was talking about today. Pasta has some things to say too, because we all were there. Johnny was in the camera. We experienced things in the same place, but differently too. And then our friends Steve and Andrew were also there, and they were in different parts. So that was a different experience. And please check me out. Pasta and I are going to be on Slow's Newsday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be back tomorrow to talk more about this. Stand up against censorship, stand up against fascism on either end of the spectrum, and stand up against the oligarchy and their plans to manipulate people into submission. Now is the time to fight. Now is the time for more direct actions, but we have to be organized as to how we proceed with that. And I welcome a unity of people who don't agree with me on everything, because that's what needs to happen. Don't let people silence your voices. We need dissent now more than ever. Thank you, guys. Tony watches closely. Thank you very much for the super chat contribution. I know you watch closely. You're like the deep state. All right. Convo out, guys. Bye.